Welcome into Pac-12 Preview. Yes, I am Michael Caratinito at Diablo00 as we are hanging out here on Friday, March 3rd. What a phenomenal month. What a phenomenal month March is. I mean, March Madness is here. Hockey, hoops, NHL, NBA headed into their playoffs. Yes, for those that actually want to watch spring training. Well, those that actually pay attention to it, I applaud you. I do, because most people at the games here in Arizona and Florida, I'd say a good amount are there for the scenery, the weather, the atmosphere, but not paying attention to the games. Now, that being said, it is March. Yes, the madness has arrived in hoops, and teams, well, on the men's side, making that sprint, to the end of the regular season as everybody wraps up this weekend. Games last night, some of the smaller leagues, well, non-Power 5 leagues. I shouldn't say smaller. I always say I can't stand that word. And yes, see, make a mistake and use it. But some of the Power 5 leagues, non-Power 5 leagues, are in their conference tournaments, but the Power 5s headed that way next weekend on the men's side. The women's side is in all right. That was odd, but we're still going. Sorry about that. I don't know what I clicked on, but whatever I did click on, but yes, we are still live, so that's a good thing. So yeah, but anywho, the women's side, like I said, is in full swing. Yes. Okay. We're rolling. Sorry. Apologies. Technical stuff. You know me, the internet. We have our disagreements. But that being said, anyway, the women's side on hoops is in college hoops. Those tournaments are in full swing. And it's been an interesting Pac-12 women's tournament to this point. Day one opened up, a little madness. I know, the homer in me, but day one opened up and we saw an overtime game. UCLA and Arizona State. Arizona State, who, as we've talked about, has had one conference win this year, and it was late in the season against Oregon State. And then they ended up closing out the season in Eugene, losing to Oregon. But they forced overtime against UCLA. UCLA actually had to close down, and ASU had the ball last in regulation, couldn't get the shot to go. But yeah, couldn't get the shot to go. Went to overtime, and in overtime, it was all UCLA. The Lady Bruins doing the job there in the first round. And they get the victory. And yes, let's look actually at those scores. because today's semifinal Friday. And yeah, it is semifinal Friday in the Pac-12. So, how we got here on Wednesday, like I said, UCLA in overtime beat ASU 81-70. They outscored them 19-8 in overtime. The Sun Devils, so in the fourth quarter, so they were down 39-25 at the half, was Coach Adair's Arizona State Sun Devils. And 39-25. So they're down by 14. They outscore UCLA by 4 in the third quarter. So now they're only down 10. Then they outscored them by 10 in the fourth quarter. They held UCLA to 6 fourth quarter points, which, yeah, not really too heard of for the Lady Bruins this season, who, yeah, we're 23-8, 11-7 in the Pac-12. So, yeah, 6 points in the fourth quarter. Outscored them by 10. They needed to. They got it done. They forced overtime. But then in overtime, UCLA, well, they return the favor 19-8 in that overtime period. And they win 81-70 over ASU to advance to the second round. Then Oregon barely held on to beat Washington 52-50. And Washington, I mean, look, they scored 9 in the first quarter. Oregon held them to 9. Then they scored 11 in the third and 10 in the second. 20 in the – or no, they scored 9 in the first, 11 in the third, 10 in the fourth, did the Huskies. They scored 20 in the second. Oregon, and defensively, they were there. People say, oh, bad shooting. No, Oregon can shoot. One thing the Lady Ducks can do is shoot, and Washington defensively was again all over them. But Oregon, I said Washington didn't score much. It was 13-9 at the end of one in Oregon. It was 29-27 in favor of Washington at halftime. Yeah, 29-27 in favor of Washington. It was 40-36. The Huskies leading over the Ducks at the end of 3. Or no, sorry. Yeah, 40-36. And then 52-50. 16-10, Oregon outscored them in the fourth quarter to get the win on the first day. Washington State, they cruised past Cal 61-49. And then Oregon State beat USC. A little bit of an upset there, as SC 21-9 overall. But yeah, Oregon State knocks SC out in the first round. And then on Thursday, so Utah, Stanford, Arizona, Colorado all had the first round buys. Should have mentioned that. But on Thursday, since Washington State beat Cal, they matched up against Oregon. Yeah, since Washington State beat Cal, they matched up against Utah. And look at this. The Cougs get the upset of the third-ranked Utes, 66-58. Washington State scored 13 points in the first, second, and fourth quarter. They put up 27 in the third. And that was a huge difference in the game, because they outscored Utah 27-11 in the third. Utah was actually up 30-26 at half. it was 53-41. Washington State after 3, because again, they outscored them 27-11 in the third, and then Utah outscored them 17-13 in the fourth, but Washington State doing enough to hold on and win that game over Utah to send them home. So with Oregon beating Washington, that gave them a date with Stanford. And Stanford had no problem, again, with the Ducks as they Lady Cardinals just keep rolling. They're 6th in the country. And, actually, after Utah beat them, they went above them. But they're 6th in the country coming into this. But 28-4 overall for Stanford. They have a comfortable victory, 76-65 over Oregon, who only scored 9 points in the first quarter. That pretty much was their detriment as they lost by 11. But 16-9, Stanford outscored them in the first quarter. And then Stanford scored 21 in the second, 21 in the third, and got outscored 20-18 in the fourth. But our girl, great shot of winning Pac-12 Player of the Year for Stanford, Cameron Brink. And the 6'4" junior, had another phenomenal game, 22 points, 11 rebounds, 1 assist for Miss Brink. And she paced the Stanford scores. The leading scorer, though, no real surprise because she has had one hell of a season, is Tahina Pow for Oregon, as she had 28 points, 5 rebounds, 2 assists, and 1 steal on the evening, but doing all she could. But Stanford, again, just too much in the end as they get the 76-65 victory. UCLA, well, with their victory over Arizona State, their reward was facing Arizona. And, well, Arizona in a little bit of a funk. Because, well, they were up 19-18 after 1. And then it was 33-31 UCLA at the half. It was 55-43 at the end of 3, and then UCLA closes it out in the fourth. Outscore Arizona 18-16, but 73-59 over the Wildcats, who, man, struggled a little bit down the stretch. Did Arizona? Dia Barnes' crew there in Tucson. So we'll see. I mean, what this leaves them as. I really don't. I couldn't really see them going below a 5 seed. I don't, but maybe with this little bit, maybe they knock down to a 6 or a 7. And yeah, so UCLA gets the victory over Arizona. And then Colorado to wrap up quarterfinal night last night. They beat Oregon State 62-54. And this is a game that was tied at halftime. It was 33-all at half. But Colorado got the best of the Beavers in the third quarter, outscoring them by 10, 18-8. And so, yeah, tied at 33 at the half. So it was 51-41 at the end of 3. And then Oregon State outscored Colorado 13-11 in the fourth. But too little, too late there, and the Buffaloes advance to semifinal Friday, in which the matchups go like this with So Stanford is taking on UCLA, and that is 9 o'clock Eastern, 6 o'clock Pacific tonight. On the whoa, so on the Pac-12 network, that game is up first. Then at 11:30 Eastern, 8:30 Pacific, because this is in Las Vegas, of course. Washington State, with their upset win over Utah, will take on the Buffaloes, who beat the Beavers. So that is the second matchup, semifinal Friday. Then they have a day off tomorrow. Whoever wins these games will play the championship game on the greatest day of March, Sunday, March 5th. Okay. Well, nonetheless, there is a bye, and then there's a yeah. So there's no games Saturday, and then the championship game gives the two teams day rest breather, and then the two teams will play on Sunday in the championship game of the women's Pac-12 tournament. So that's where we are with the women. We're going to step aside real quick, and then we will hit the men's, because there was a lot of crazy action last night. UCLA already won the regular season title, but the other battle in Los Angeles between Southern Cal and Arizona, USC U of A, big implications. The team that won that would be in the driver's seat for the 2 seed in the Pac-12 tournament. Still have a bye. Both of these teams are still going to have a bye in the first round of the Pac-12 tournament, which is next weekend in Vegas. So the women wrap up on Sunday. The men hit there on Wednesday. So yes, very awesome time of the year. It's a bummer because it's coming to an end, but awesome time of the year just because of the conference tournament. So we'll step aside real quick. What's up? ACC is going to have a good finish. I am with you on that. It couldn't be. Well, look, I'll get to that too. Pensman Sports, thank you for checking in on YouTube. But yes, I will get to that because, sorry, it took me a second to see that. But I will get to that because, yes, there are very interesting, how, these bracketologists, after one loss, it flips. And I will get to that as we get to the men's scores in the Pac-12 on the other side. So don't go too far. And we'll have more coming up here on Pac-12 Preview. Back here on Pac-12 Preview. Yes, I am Michael Caratenuto at Diablo00 on Twitter. Please feel free. Hit me up. Let me know what's going on, your thoughts and all that good stuff as we get rolling. Here. And it's, again, it's one of those things where last night was, again, madness on the women's side, a little bit of huge madness on the men's side as the results of games, stuff got shaken up last night. And when I look at it, it's one of those things where the result of the UCLA ASU game affected ASU, and this is what cracks me up with bracketologists, because some that already had them first as first 4 out or last team in, and then now back in the first first four out, or the first team out, actually, according to Joe Lunardi's bracketology, the up to the minute, as we again hit the last weekend of regular season play on the men's side. But yeah, so UCLA cruises to victory 79-61. It was a very close game. Arizona State had the lead most of the first half. Arizona State had the lead most of the first half, but UCLA went in the locker room up 36-32. There were some non-agreeable calls as for Bobby Hurley, and I know I saw some comments on Twitter saying, "Oh, you can't take a technical foul in this sense," and for the calls. But look, it was frustrating, but nonetheless, the Sun Devils were in it. 36-32 at Pauley Pavilion. UCLA is up at the half. The second half, though, UCLA defensively, and again, that's why they're one of the top defensive teams in the country. And I said this last week that UCLA, Arizona, USC, and ASU defensively can go toe-to-toe with a lot of teams. UCLA, again, forced some turnovers. ASU, again, some of the passes. Some guys needed to come back to the ball a little bit more. I also feel that when we look at the game too, again, somebody needed to set extra screens to get guys to the ball. You saw how they were playing defense. And yes, I mean, it's just, again, UCLA, that's why they're the fourth ranked team in the country. So they win that game 79-61. The other game in LA, both these games, again, featured on ESPN last night. But Arizona, the Wildcats, coming off that buzzer beater loss to the Sun Devils last Saturday, they turn around and they had a 43-31 halftime lead over USC. And then USC outscored them 50-44 in the second half. But again, it was that first half kind of did USC in. So Arizona gets the 87-81 victory. Azuolas Tubelis, again, another phenomenal night for the Arizona forward. 25 points and 10 rebounds for Tubelis. And again, he's right there with Jaime Jaquez, who had a sick night. And again, I should have mentioned that first. A sick night for UCLA against Arizona State, because Arizona State went up 12-2. But there was a point when it was like 20, I think it was like 28 to, or it was 20, it was 24-19, and Jaquez had 15 of the 19 UCLA points, because early on ASU defense challenged. I mean, played well, played good all game, but the UCLA offense, again, just didn't miss shots, and that's their job. And defensively, they caused a few more turnovers in the second half. But I digress back to this game. But you look at USC, and, well, again, Mr. Boogie Ellis. Boogie Ellis showed out again, as he had 35 points to lead all scores, lead the Trojans, but lead all scores, 35 points, 3 assists, 2 rebounds on the night for Boogie Ellis. So he was trying to battle his team back. But when you look at Arizona, Tubelis had 25, Ramey had 16, Kerr Kriisa had 11, Ballo had 10. And you look at off the bench, Boswell had 14 points for the Wildcats. But yeah, when you're getting 25 and 10 from Kriisa, and then 16 points, 4 assists, 2 rebounds from Ramey, man, it's just again a heck of a overall performance. And then again, defensively from the Wildcats too, what they can do. Again, that length is just so challenging, so very challenging to get around. So they needed that win, even though, like I said, UCLA already won the regular season title. As we know, the Bruins wrapped it up last weekend after ASU had beaten U of A in Tempe. And that in Tucson, sorry, ASU beat U of A in Tucson. That wrapped up the regular season title for UCLA. But again, nonetheless, Arizona needed that. They're in control now of the number 2 seed in the conference tournament, which, of course, top 4 teams, like I said, get a first round bye. Then last night, Stanford, no problem. 2 teams that have struggled this year, but they just absolutely demolish Oregon State 83-60. And really, again, it's been a tough year for the Beavers. 10-20 overall, 4-15 in the PAC, and yeah, just a very tough season for Oregon State. But Stanford, again, 13-17 overall, 7-12 in Pac-12 play. So not much better, but they get the huge victory there. Washington State in the Apple Cup rivalry, they beat Washington 93-84. Now, Washington State, this is interesting. What they can do is still very, very interesting because they are done now. But both that they ended their seasons playing each other, and that was last night. So for those 2 teams headed to the Pac-12 tournament, they get a little extra break. And not saying that it'll help either one of them win the Pac-12 tournament, but it's nice to you play Thursday, coming off what they did last weekend. So you play Thursday. They don't have to play Saturday. They're not playing again until next Wednesday, possibly Thursday, though, for Washington State. And I'll get to that in a second. Oregon, well, they took care of Cal. No problem there. Oregon, was very consistent, 42 points in each half. So they beat Cal 84-51. Cal, again, 3-27 on the season, 2-17 in Pac-12 play. As Oregon State will look to see if they can beat Cal and make sure that they're not at the bottom of the Pac-12. But, Oregon had the big victory there over Cal and, just cruise. But for Washington State, this is what's interesting. So Oregon plays Stanford on Saturday, and Arizona State has USC, as we know. So as we look at the standings, check this out. UCLA, like I said, 17-2 in the PAC after last night's victory over Arizona State, still undefeated at home at 16-0, which is crazy this season. They have not lost a game at home. The Wildcats are coming in and spoil that. But so you look at the top 2, UCLA, Arizona. Okay. Even if Arizona loses to UCLA and USC wins, Arizona would still get the tiebreaker because they beat USC twice this year. Head-to-head battle, they won both games. So Arizona's got the number 2 seed locked up. The number 3 seed, I'd say, is locked up by USC. Here's the craziness at the 4 seed. If Arizona State beats USC, it's locked up. They're the 4 seed. Those 4 teams would have the bye. UCLA, both LA schools and both Arizona schools. UCLA, Arizona, SC, Arizona State all have first round byes in the Pac-12 tournament. So here's the crazy thing. If Oregon wins, their game and Arizona State loses, Oregon would be Oregon would be 12-8. And here's the madness of that, right? Here's the madness of that. If Oregon wins and they beat Stanford, they're 12-8. So now they would jump Arizona State if they fall to USC, and they would take the 4 seed. If both Oregon and Arizona State lose, Washington State would actually leapfrog to the 4th seed and have the first round bye. So that, to me, and this is a Washington State team that, look, was very, very banged up early in the season. And people say, I know you guys are going to say, oh, now you're using injuries and excuse, talking out of both sides of your mouth because you rip on other people for doing it. Because I do always say, nobody's going to feel sorry for you. You got to roll the ball out and play. And no, I'm just letting you know that Washington State was injured as they got healthier and healthier. And it took a little bit into conference play to do that. We saw what Washington State can do. Now they're 16-15 overall, so they would have to win the Pac-12 tournament. But the madness of that is if both Arizona State and Oregon lose on Saturday, Washington State is now the 4 seed because Arizona State would finish at 11-9, Oregon would finish at 11-9. So would, well, Washington State's already done 11-9. So that's the interesting part of the madness of it for Washington State. So, I mean, they're definitely Stanford fans and SC fans, but I think that's, I mean, not asking a lot, but asking a little bit at that point. And they got healthy at the right time. And this is a team that, with the way they can shoot the three, the way they shot the three, can make it interesting. I will say that because when we look at Washington State scores, in conference play, I mean, in December, they lost to both Oregon and Utah. Again, 74-60, 67 to Oregon, 67-65 to Utah. Again, banged up. Lost to a number 11 Baylor at the time when, I mean, they had a few guys, but 65-59. They were in that game with Baylor the whole time. But then they start conference play. And they lost to UCLA. They turn around and beat SC by 10. And SC was banged up early on, too, in conference play. But kudos to Washington State. Then they come to Arizona. They lose to Arizona State, 77-71. But then they get a crazy upset down in Tucson, 74-61 over the Wildcats. The Wildcats didn't shoot good that night. Hey, nonetheless, Washington State did. So they they beat Arizona 74-61, beat Cal, beat Stanford, win 3 in a row. Then they lose 3 in a row again. They lose to Utah again, lost to Colorado, and then, yes, Arizona came up to town and they said, no. But it was a close game again, but Arizona beat them 63-58. They turn around and avenge the loss, though, to Arizona State. They beat Arizona State 75-58. Turn around and, lost to USC. SC avenged that loss in LA. Then got swept by UCLA. But then they turn around. Listen to this. They beat Washington, beat Oregon State, beat Oregon, beat Stanford, beat Cal, and beat their rivals in Washington. Now, yes, I know I said it about Stanford and Cal. Have struggled, not been that good. But nonetheless, I mean, it was 67-63 over Stanford, 63-57 over Cal, who's battling. So they have now won 6 in a row to close out the season. They could be the 4 seed. So, I mean, maybe outside of UCLA, the hottest team in the Pac-12 is Washington State. But yeah, the madness to think that they could actually end up in the 4 seed is crazy to me. Like I said, because of how they started out with the early season injuries and where they were in conference. But I mean, you got to tip your cap to them. I mean, TJ Bamba put up 36. And this young man can score. He's been doing it this season. But TJ Bamba puts up 36 in a rivalry game over Washington. And Kyle Smith, who I've talked to before in the past, I mean, this man, very, very talented coach. But yeah, I mean, you have a guy like TJ Bamba putting up 36 in a game where you win 93 to 84. So you win by 9, you put up over obviously 90. But yeah, Washington State can end up in the 4 seed right now if everything were to hold true above them. So just say that ASU wins, Oregon wins, ASU would still be the 4 seed because of tiebreakers. That's how it is right now. They split with Oregon. Each team won on each other's court. But yeah, so ASU would still be the 4th seed. Oregon would be 5. Washington State would be 6. Well, Utah and Colorado have to they play Saturday. The Mountain Rivalry game is Saturday. And so Utah and Colorado, they will close out on Saturday. It means a lot more for Utah than it does for Colorado. But you look at Colorado, they're 8-12, or they would be, if they win, they'd be 8-12. There'd be a lot of traffic jam at 8-12 because Washington, the Huskies, like I said, Washington State done. They finished 8-12 in conference play. But if Colorado beats Utah, they would be 8-12. If Stanford beats Oregon, they would also be 8-12. So, yeah, too many tiebreakers to talk about there. But that would be playing for the pretty much the 8 seed, 8, 9, and 10 seeds with their Oregon State is in the 11. Cal's, oh, yeah, no matter what, we do know this. UCLA's 1, Arizona's 2. Oh, yeah, USC's 3. Because even if USC loses, they're 13-7, nobody can get to that. So we do know this. UCLA's 1, Arizona's 2, USC's 3. Oregon State is 11, and Cal is 12. So from there, since we do know that, yeah, 1, 2, 3, 11, and 12 are all set. 4 through 8, not so much, or 4 through 10, not set yet. I mean, you have, if ASU loses and Oregon loses, Washington State goes up. If ASU loses and Oregon wins, Oregon would have the number 4 seed. I don't know if that would drop ASU to 6 because, again, they split with Washington State. And I'm not kidding you, there is like a page and a half of tiebreakers. But I do know this. For looking at Saturday's matchups, or when we look at Saturday's when we look at Saturday's matchups, Stanford and Oregon kicked the day off. Again, huge game for Oregon. That's at 4:00 Eastern on CBS. Utah and Colorado, again, that is Utah and Colorado. That's 5:30 Eastern on the Pac-12 network, and was that 2:30 Pacific? Cal and Oregon State, that's 8:00 Eastern, 5:00 Pacific on the Pac-12 network. But then Saturday night, baby, from Pauley Pavilion, 10:00 Eastern, 7:00 Pacific. Arizona, who beat UCLA, or no. Oh, yeah. They beat UCLA in Tucson. That they did. Yeah, they beat UCLA 58-52 on the road. UCLA is undefeated at home, like I said. But that is the primetime game, 11:00 Eastern. 10:00 Eastern, 7:00 Pacific on ESPN. as Arizona travels through Pauley Pavilion, and then the nightcap. Well, the pseudo nightcap, but at 11 o'clock Eastern, 8 o'clock Pacific, Arizona State trying to get to. Oh, that'd be interesting. They'd both finish 21-10, although USC would finish 13-7 in the PAC, and Arizona State finished 12-8, which to me gets them back in. But nonetheless, well, according to Lenardi's bracketology, but a lot still have Arizona State as the first four out or second four out, which to me is a joke. But they take on USC again, 11 o'clock Eastern, 8 o'clock Pacific on Fox Sports 1 on Saturday night. So, again, definitely check that out. And yeah, so Saturday's games again mean so much. And look, if you're Arizona State, I'm going to get into the bracketology. I'm going to take a quick break, step aside, let you digest that, percolate it, and again, hit me up on Twitter at Diablo00. What your thought? Any thoughts you have? Also, yes, I will talk about other conferences and their standings and where it's at. So again, hit me up on Twitter. Let me know, or drop something off in the comments here too as well. Pensman Sports, thank you. The ACC is, you say, is going to be a good finish. We'll see, because Carolina and Duke, I mean, I know that rivalry game, obviously the Tobacco Road rivalry game there, huge. But I'll get to all that on the other side. So we'll step aside very quickly. And when on the other side, again, talk about standings in other conferences, bracketology, all that good stuff, because the madness is here and we are excited. More coming up here on Pac-12 Preview. All right, back here on Pac-12 Preview. I am Michael Caratonito at Diablo00. March 3rd. Happy birthday to Zoe. Got to give her a shout out. Yes, the big two for little Miss Zoe. So happy birthday to you, little Miss Zoe, today, March. Phenomenal month to have, lots going on. March is just a phenomenal month. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. But yes, back to, again, so the bracketology, I mentioned that before the break, said to get right to it. The top overall seed, according to Joe Lenardi in his ESPN bracketology, and I do like to tease him because he's been studying, he's been doing it for years, as a lot of us know. A lot of you that are, that are 15. A lot of you that are 10 to 20 years old. He's been doing it a long time, has Mr. Lenardi. But yes, he Arizona State back on the bubble. He has them as their first 14 out. So the last four buys, and this is updated today. This is updated today at 9 o'clock Eastern time. So 6 o'clock a.m. in Pacific. But so his last four buys, even though with the loss to Arizona last night, see, that loss didn't hurt USC because they weren't supposed to beat Arizona, even though they're at home and Arizona's ranked higher. USC still has the last four buy. One of the last four buys. It's USC, Boise State, West Virginia, and Auburn. All right. Last four in. Mississippi State still have an issue with this. Nevada, Wisconsin definitely a bigger issue, especially over, and again, it has nothing to do with being a Pac-12 homer, but over Arizona State, absolute joke. But on the last four in, Mississippi State, Nevada, Wisconsin, Penn State. First four out, ASU went to the first four out after they went to the last team in from beating Arizona, but losing to UCLA, who's ranked higher, who they're not supposed to beat. But other teams, when they lose to that, it doesn't really affect them in their bracketology with their schedule, a.k.a. Mississippi State. The huge problem Mississippi State's living off their alleged dominance of their conference. Auburn, they got the last word by. They hung tight. See, because they hung tight with Alabama in the little Iron Bowl rivalry there the other night. But yeah, so ASU, North Carolina, Michigan, who lost to Illinois last night, which is one of ASU's big wins. So would have loved for Michigan to win because I think Michigan needs to win Saturday. Whatever they do, they need to win Saturday or Sunday whenever they play. And then Utah State, the next four out, Oklahoma State, Clemson, Charleston, and Oregon. Oregon now has just moved into the next four out. So I need Nevada, Wisconsin, Penn State to all lose, and Mississippi State. Love to see them all lose. And then have ASU and Oregon do well in the Pac-12 tournament and win. Actually, both ASU and Oregon win Saturday. And then actually Michigan and Carolina lose. That would slide. Well, Oregon needs a little help from Charleston, Clemson, and Oklahoma State. But that being said, anyway, for Arizona State, though, again, their path is still right there. If they beat SC, I think they go back to the last four in. Because right now it's Arizona or UCLA, which is a number 2 seed in the West. Oh, no. Oh, wow. They have UCLA as a number 2 seed, but in the Midwest, not in the West. They have Houston, a number 1 seed in the West, and then the number 2 seed is Kansas is now the number 2 seed in the West. So Houston, Purdue still, which Alabama. Oh, no, that's Kansas State. I'm sorry. I said Kansas that's Kansas State. Sorry, Kansas is a number 1 in the Midwest. So it's Alabama, Kansas, Purdue, and Houston, the 4 number 1 seeds, according to Joe Lunardi right now. Really not too much argument there. With Purdue, I think if Purdue to me is a team that's fading from the number 1 seed. Yes, they are. What they've done, again, just in general. But, yeah, Houston right there. So, yeah, Alabama, Kansas, the way Kansas has been playing. Again, Kansas going for back-to-back titles. I could see that. But here's what gets me. And, again, I'm gonna harp on this because when you look, okay, let's go to – when we look at the SEC, this has been driving me mad for a week and a half now. And yes, they have to play the games 150 million %. Games need to be played. Try not to get too upset. But when you start seeing people that have a knowledge in this and know, it's frustrating because when we look at the SEC, right? Mississippi State is 8-9 in conference play, right? And I said this before, they're 20-10 overall. So 8-9 in conference play. Now, you talk about getting credit for a schedule that's okay. The Texas A&M, I'm going to go through it again. I went through it the other day, but if you weren't here, I apologize. And if you were here, thank you, but let this sink in. So they're out of conference games. They won. They beat Texas A&M, Corpus Christi, Akron, Arkansas, Pine Bluff, South Dakota. Okay, Marquette was their toughest game in the first 5. Sorry. They played Marquette, and they did get a 58-55 win. They played Utah in the Pac-12, who's had a strong season because there's a while Utah was running up top. Yeah, they've hit a little speed bump lately. Utah's a good team. So they beat Utah for 249. They beat Marquette, who is doing obviously very, very well now. Marquette unranked at the time, and they beat them by 3. Utah unranked at the time, and they beat them by 3. But they won. Then they take on Omaha, Mississippi Valley State, Minnesota, who they beat. Okay, and Minnesota's not good. Sorry. They're average at best. And sorry, Big Ten fans, but they beat you there. And then they beat Jackson State and Nichols. And then they lose to Drake, which I love. Lose to Alabama, who's ranked 8 at the time. Tennessee, and then you say on the road, lost to them, got crushed by both. Well, more so by Tennessee, but 78-67. And then Tennessee bludgeons them 87-53. Okay. Then they turn around and beat Ole Miss, who's not good. Then they turn around and lose 3 in a row to Georgia, Auburn, and then they lose to Tennessee again. Does Mississippi State. Oh, no, they lost. Sorry, they didn't lose 3 in a row. They lost 5 in a row. Georgia, Auburn, Tennessee again, Florida, and Mississippi State, and Alabama again. And Alabama's number 2 again. They get a break. So they beat 11th ranked TCU, 81-74. Then they beat South Carolina, not too good. Missouri, above average, they beat. Then they beat LSU, not good whatsoever at all. And then they beat Arkansas, who's middle of the road like them, beat them by 6. Lose to Kentucky, who started to get hot. At home, mind you not, at home, they lose to Kentucky. Then they beat Ole Miss, who's terrible, like I said. They beat Missouri, who's above average again. Beat Texas A&M. Okay, having a hell of a year is A&M. And then they beat South Carolina, who's terrible. And now they have Vanderbilt, who, is just above average again. Really hoping Vanderbilt wins that game because I'm sorry, Mississippi State, when I look at their schedule and when you're comparing them to, when I compare it to, again, like I did, Arizona State's right there, being a Pac-12 homer. Look at what Washington State's doing now. You want to talk about a middle-of-the-road team that actually has shown growth and improvement, I would say Washington State over Mississippi State because when we look at Arizona State's schedule and comparing it to Mississippi State's, their resume, okay, they opened up with Tarleton in Northern Arizona, got wins, lost to Texas Southern by 1 on the road. All right, not a good loss early in the season. Turn around, beat VCU. Good win. Crushed number 20 Michigan at the time. Now Michigan's okay, not ranked, and everybody wants to speak out of both sides of their mouth. Well, Michigan was ranked 20 at the time. They were playing good. ASU crushes them 87-62. They beat Grambling, beat Alcorn State. Same kind of matchups that Mississippi State had. Turn around and beat Colorado after being down by a lot. Beat Stanford. Go on the road and beat SMU. Beat Creighton at a neutral site by 2. And Creighton, a very talented team. And, now they're getting healthier. But everybody said, Arizona had beaten Creighton before that. And then ASU turns around and beats Creighton. They beat San Diego. Yes, bad loss to San Francisco. Absolutely. Totally bad loss. So you have you have a bad loss to Texas Southern on the road. At San Francisco, that is a very bad loss. Turn around, lose to Arizona. Then you beat Washington State, beat Washington, beat Oregon State. Then you hit a rough patch. Okay, you lose to UCLA, who was 5th at the time in the country, lose to USC. Go on the road, lose to Washington in overtime, and then Washington State, getting healthier, avenges their loss, had their way with ASU. Then you turn around, you beat Oregon State on the road, needed that, lose to Oregon, then you beat Stanford, beat Cal, who you should beat, lose to Colorado. Again, they avenged the loss. They won on each other's home courts. But you beat Utah, you beat Arizona. You lose to UCLA, who's 4th in the country, who you're not supposed to beat anyway, right? Now, I understand they weren't supposed to beat Alabama either, was Mississippi State. But are you kidding me with again, the commonality is both these teams beat Utah. So, okay, and they only played Utah once in the Pac-12 this year, but they both beat Utah. And that's what drives me absolutely maddening and crazy looking at Mississippi State, looking at the bracketology, because they are the top of the last 4 in Mississippi State. Absolutely pathetic. They're done in the first round. Like, actually, they have them playing Wisconsin, who I have another huge gripe with. When we look at Wisconsin, right, and we go to the Big Ten, when you look at Wisconsin, who is 8-11 in Big Ten play, right? Because Big Ten's so great. Well, if Michigan's down and they're 11-8, so Michigan's on the outside looking in, according to Joe Lunardi's bracketology. Okay, so Michigan 11-8. You got Purdue 14-5. They're regular season champs. They're good. Iowa at 11-8. And then everybody else. Okay, so Iowa at 11-8. Maryland, who's number 21 in the country, they're at 11-8. Indiana's 15 in the country. They're 11-8 in conference play. Illinois is 11-8 after last night's victory over Michigan. That's why they're ahead of Michigan now. Michigan's 11-8. Northwestern is 11-8. Then you have Michigan State at 10-8. Rutgers at 10-9, who is got a huge upset last night. Then you have Penn State at 9-10. See, the Big Ten gets so much credit. Penn State's 9-10 in conference play, 18-12 overall. Nebraska 8-11. Wisconsin 8-11. Ohio State 5-14. Minnesota 2-16. Again, Minnesota's terrible, terrible, and that's one of Mississippi State's wins. 2-16 in conference, 8-20 overall. Really? Okay, great. So, but when I look at Wisconsin, I get a little batty because their schedule as well. So South Dakota, and they did beat Stanford, but we see where Stanford's at. So not tying both sides of my mouth. Unfortunately, Stanford's played average, but you need to be better than average. So they beat Stanford. Then they played Green Bay and Dayton. They lost to number 3 Kansas. Okay, weren't supposed to win, and it was only by 1 point. They beat USC early, and again, I said that was one of USC's early losses, so that helps. If the Pac-12 is not good, why should that win help them out so much, right? Why should those 2 wins against Stanford and USC help them out? Oh, but it helps them out now because we want to say the Big Ten is all great. Lose to Wake Forest, who's not ranked. They beat Marquette, turn around and beat 13th ranked Maryland, beat Iowa, beat Lehigh. Ooh, their game against Grambling got canceled. They beat Western Michigan. Minnesota's terrible. They lost to Illinois, lost to Michigan State, lost to Indiana. They beat Penn State. Then they lost to Northwestern, lost to Maryland, lost to Illinois. Beat Ohio State, lost to Northwestern again. Beat Penn State, okay. Lost to Nebraska, no bueno. Beat Michigan, lost to Rutgers. Okay. Beat Iowa. All right. Good win. Lost to Michigan, lost to Purdue. I would love to see them lose to Minnesota just because. But, yeah, they're 16-13, and they're 11th in the Big Ten. And you're going to tell me a team that's 4th in the Pac-12 that has wins over Arizona, has a win over Arizona. Yes, got swept by UCLA. They get a win over USC. I don't want to hear anything about Wisconsin in the tournament. When you look at the bracketology, that drives me absolutely batty. They're still in the last 4 in Wisconsin and Penn State. Like, I'm sorry. No. I mean, look, for Auburn, what Bruce Pearl has done, and again, it's not a lifetime achievement award. That's the problem. It's this year. When you look at Auburn, they're 9-8. So at least they're above 500, and they're 19-11 overall. But you're getting credit for the rest of your conference. So again, the 4th ranked team in the country should get a lot. You should get a lot more credit than 12, 23, and 24. Now you have the number 2 ranked team in the country in Alabama in your conference. Okay, and they're 16-1, and they ran away with the regular season SEC title in hoops. So good for them. But and they're also undefeated at home is Alabama. So yeah, and Auburn, I mean, again, just lost, but 9-8 overall. It's I mean, George Mason, South Florida, Winthrop, Texas Southern, Bradley, Northwestern, who they beat by 1, 43-42, wins a win. That was their first tough game. Then they played St. Louis and Colgate. Granted, kids at Colgate probably a lot smarter, but not better in hoops. I'm kidding, Auburn. It was just a joke. Relax. I'm just going off of what Josh Rosen said a few years back. Go look it up. It's absolutely hilarious in his UCLA presser. Colgate, and then they lose to Memphis, not ranked. Beat Georgia State. They lost to USC, got crushed by USC. Or no, sorry. I thought it was 47. But they lost to USC 74-71. They beat Washington. Okay. But we see where Washington's at. That's fine. 84-61. They beat Florida, lost to Georgia, beat 13th ranked Arkansas at the time, beat Mississippi State, beat LSU, beat South Carolina, then lost to A&M, lost to West Virginia, beat Georgia, lost to Tennessee, lost to A&M, lost to Alabama, beat Mizzou, lost to Vanderbilt, beat Ole Miss, who's terrible, lost to Kentucky, lost to Alabama. They close out with Tennessee tomorrow. So, again, the games have to be played, but to give credit for his schedule and say that Mississippi State is the top of the last 4 in, so they're playing in that 11 thing against Wisconsin, who has no business being there. Nevada will be playing against Penn State. It is ridiculous to me. Absolutely ridiculous to me. So, again, Pac-12 getting beat up. I don't get it. But that's all got to play out. So enjoy. Going to get out of here, but enjoy your hoops today. Again, like I said, there's, men's and women's games going on. Women's tournaments. There's some men's conference tournaments going on too. But the Pac-12 women's, the semifinals, again, as we see playing today, Stanford, again, looking to, they had a share of the regular season title, and they're looking to win the Pac-12 regular season title. But we have UCLA taking on Stanford, number 6, Stanford, number 19, UCLA, and the darlings, Washington State. Well, had to play the first day, but got the win, then turned around and shocked Utah, and now they have the other mountain school, number 20, Colorado. So those are the women's championship games. But I'm going to get out of here. Again, enjoy your hoops, enjoy hockey, enjoy baseball. Spring training, obviously college baseball, college softball, enjoy that. Has started. I'll be at quite a few events. You'll see it on Twitter at Diablo00 this weekend. And yeah, Sunday, if you want to send me a message or, send some stuff, feel free to do it on Sunday. I'll let you figure out why. But yeah, feel free to do it. But at Diablo00 on Twitter, going to get out of here. And again, enjoy the weekend. And as always, forks up.